Hello, welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church, Hanley. I'm Pastor Gervais Charmley. This is the second in a series on historic churches in Shropshire. And in this video, we're in the ancient church of St. Michael and All Angels, Smethcott. Now, the name Smethcott means Smith's Cottage. It's a tiny little settlement, dispersed settlement, up in the hills of Shropshire. Shropshire has been described as England's most rural county, and Smethcott certainly feels like it. This church dates back to the Norman period, to the 11th, 12th century. It's a building that is very simple, very small. You can just see above me the roof, the beautiful roof that is all held together with timber pegs. We'll have a bit of a closer look at it later. This is one of your smaller English country churches. There are smaller ones, but this I think is one of the smallest in this area. It's not surrounded by buildings. This is a dispersed settlement, so there are various groups of houses and individual farmhouses. And right at the middle, on top of a hill beside the earthworks of a Norman castle, is St. Michael's place, a beacon in the midst of this parish, a place of great history, and a place where for hundreds of years, till today, still continuing, the people of the parish have come to worship. So let's have a look around this building, and I'll point out some of the more salient features as we go. Let's begin with what has to be the most interesting and exciting feature of St. Michael's, and it is the font. Yes, that is a font. It is a huge, rough-hewn piece of stone with a simple, rough wooden cover. It's lined with lead, and it clearly is an ancient font. But it is such an ancient font that very little has been done to shape this boulder beyond rough marks with the mason's tools. The cover is so simple. You see here the staple. That was to be able to lock it, one on the other side as well, that was to be able to lock it shut, because in the Middle Ages the water would be kept in the font all the time, and that water was holy water, and that water would be superstitiously used by people for magic. Witches were supposed to come and steal holy water to use in their ceremonies. There is a little vestry here, one of these little internal boxes. There's nothing external. There's two bells, which will be, of course, a ding and a dong. And you can see here this tall panel here. That is because here's the door. You see there's a modern wheelchair ramp. That's the door. And as you can see from the thick curtain there, in the winter it gets very cold up here. We'll see more when we go outside. But it gets very cold out here in the winter. And so people don't want to have a draft down the backs of their necks. So that would be, I suspect, that is there to keep people from getting too cold. Up here is the roof. The roof is wonderful. It looks to be medieval, probably 14th century. You can see, of course, there the beam that indicates the division between the nave and the chancel. There is no external structural division, but there is a division made by the roof beams. And you can see it's all held together with wooden pegs, not a nail in the whole construction, at least not originally. All formed by local craftsmen working with wood that would have been cut and seasoned locally. So we move forward. There is at the back a little children's corner, and that very common, all things bright and beautiful, all creatures great and small print. You'll find them in many, many churches. And it's a typical Anglican church interior, pews either side of a central aisle. Now, there's something interesting here. You can see there is this fold down, or it would fold, it's intended to fold down, part of the bookboard. And along the walls, those are the old box pews. Again, it's box pew panelling. When these Victorian pews were put in, and you can see they're very simple, you can also see they are shorter than the box pews were. One of the great complaints about box pews has been that they are tall, and it's one of the things that people didn't like about them, but the doors were very helpful. But the pews have been introduced are very simple. This isn't one of those places where there's been this massive high church restoration. This is one which clearly is quite high. You can see the vases and the candlesticks on the altar, and that's very much is an altar there. There is a high church element, but the money wasn't here to really do it up in a big way. Again, more box pew panelling. Here's the war memorial, and this is one of the ways you can tell it was a very high church, because you've got a crucifix, and it is sacred to the memory of the undermentioned parishioners who made the supreme sacrifice during the Great War, 1914 to 18. And at the bottom you have, upon whose souls Jesu mercy, may they rest in peace and perpetual light shine upon them. And that is a prayer for the repose of their souls, which is very much an Anglo-Catholic thing. Again, you have Second Lieutenant Charles Robert Blackett. So that's the manor house losing a son. Sergeant Harry Millman, Sergeant Charles Davis, Corporal James Fox, Gunner Thomas Pinches. And you can see that is represented here. You've got the Shropshire, the Lancashire, the Royal Field Artillery, the Royal Horse Artillery, the Australian Infantry, the Cheshire Regiment, the Royal Army Signal Corps. Quite a cross-section of the army, and a little pulpit to one side, a lectern, and you see the little organ in a box basically on the other side. A very typical instrument for this sort of parish, that you would have something that is quite simple. This is, of course, where the priest's door used to be before it was filled in. It's a very simple instrument. It opens up, and it's the sort of thing that a little church like this would have. It hasn't been used for a while. I suspect it again had this singing prohibition for the last several months. On the opposite side, we have the reading desk for the minister, and looking west, you can see the big, tall panel there to keep the draughts out of back of people's necks, and on the other side, there's the old north door, and the vestry, and these windows, and we get into the chants when you've got these little arched windows. This little one, this would be one of the original windows of the church, and this shows what the church would have been like. Here is a piece of medieval masonry. It appears to be a sort of four-headed, probably pinnacle thing, and altar covered, which does suggest, and one or two other things, that they may have a bit of a bat problem here, and a memorial to HRH, the Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. Here we have a memorial to the Reverend G.M.K. Ellerton, M.A. Oxon, rector of this parish from 1870 to 1895, departed this life St. Michael's Day, 1898, aged 81 years, R.I.P. Being called to resign his charge of the parish through ill health, he lived in retirement 3 years and was buried in Shropshire Cemetery, 4th of October, 1898. Always we walk with him and keep unbroken the bond which nature gives, knowing that our remembrance, though unspoken, will reach him where he lives. Again, it's this high church praying for the dead. Bit of a problem with the ceiling up there. That's going to need some work. But the church is still in use, it is still open, it still has all the evidence of regular services. And again, you can see at the back the ding and dong bells, and here the lectern. Like so many of these things, it's a memorial. And to the glory of God and to the memory of William and Emma Tompkins, two faithful servants of God, given by the church people of Smethcott. And this is there's a couple of spellings of Smethcott which are still used. It's one of those lovely little villages in England where they haven't yet completely standardised the spelling, and long may it remain so. The labour of making this lectern was generously given by George Ball, a craftsman of Picklescott. Picklescott is the next door hamlet, really. Picklescott doesn't have a church. It's part, then, of this parish, at least I believe so. There we are again, the box pew panelling, and you can see how high it is. And the pulpit is a very simple wooden example. Well, let's go outside and have a look at the exterior of this building. Well, let's start in the porch. The church porch was very important in the Middle Ages. It was where marriages, or the initial stages of marriage services, took place, and it was a place where meetings happened. So it's an important location, the church porch. Now, today there is a big car park, there has to be, and beyond that hedge there, you can't see through it, we should be able to see round it, beyond there is the old castle. It's just earthworks now. It's a motte and bailey built during the period when the Normans were securing their hold on this border area, because just over there is Wales. That hill is between us and Wales. And here we are, and you can see the elevated location. We'll move towards the main churchyard gate, the gate that, obviously the one I came out, the one from the car park. Because once we're down here, you can see for miles from up here. It's a central point. There's only the one road here now, but there's a path and another path. So this was a crossroads, an ancient crossroads. And here they built the church. There it is. There is, as you can see, a slight structural, initially thought there wasn't, there's a slight structural distinction between nave and chancel, particularly it's mostly in terms of the roof line. But very simple, that little bellcot with the two bells in it, with its copper on it. And thankfully no one has pinched it yet. You can just see through the door, through the gate there, the earthworks of the castle. And so in the Middle Ages there would have been a wooden castle, most likely there, not a stone building. And just beside the castle, the church. And this tells us something about when it was built and why it was built. That the castle is there to defend the English, but also to project power towards the Welsh. It's there to tell the Welsh that the Normans are in charge, the Normans have power here, and don't attack the village. So we'll go round the west end of the church. You should have another look through the hedge there to the castle, and you can see here the windows have all mostly rather been renewed by the Victorians. Yes, there again you can just see through there the rise of the castle earthworks. And you picture on that there was been a wooden tower and a wooden palisade, and within timber-framed buildings. And here the church, and here we get to see some of the ancient features of the building. Look at that. This is the north door. This is Norman. There is a tympanum with some evidence of carving on it. And here, these marks are from sharpening arrows. Not to do with warfare here, though there may very well have been some skirmishes in this area between the English and the Welsh. But it was to do with practice that there would have been nearby to the church, the archery butts. And you may have wondered why we talk about people being the butt of a joke. Well, the butt is the target, it's what you fire at in archery. So there we are, there's the outside. You can see those big Victorian windows, and we'll see in just a couple of seconds how they contrast. So here's the Norman door, here's the Victorian windows, And as we come along, we come to the one surviving original window. And that is the original window. You've got to remember that in the 11th, 12th centuries, you didn't have glass, certainly not in a building like this. The result was that windows were open to the elements. And up here on top of the hill, in the winter, you'd have had the wind whistling through there, you'd had the possibility of snow blowing through. There would have been shutters, but of course in the service you kind of had to have them open. And so you want very small windows that don't let a lot of weather in through them. Obviously the location here on top of the hill is very useful in terms of the castle as being a defensive site, but also in terms of the church as being a central point, a point that people can see. And the church is a place where if the Welsh should attack, people could run to them. And here we can see all the way to the Wrekin. You can see for miles from up here. It is mostly towards England, of course, because it's down there into the plains of Shropshire and Cheshire, and it just goes for miles. There's the Wrekin, the Shropshire Hills. It's a glorious location. It's one of the... but on the other side, of course, this is towards Wales. There are more hills, so you can see to a certain extent into Wales, but it's not the most... It's not the area you can see into best. But still, you could see the Welsh coming. And there we are, the east end of this little building. There's not a huge amount to say in terms of history, because like most of these buildings, it hasn't had anything terribly significant happen in terms of history. Yes, the Welsh have the Welsh border wars here, Welsh raids across the border, but no major battles. But here, Smethcott Church has stood for hundreds of years, best part of 1,000 years the church has been here, and significant parts. So significantly it is a Norman church. It's just got more recent windows added when people decided they didn't like the Norman windows because the Norman windows were too small. And when glass is introduced, you don't need those tiny windows. And again, the simplicity here of this priest's door. The tympanum is just a fairly roughly shaped piece of stone, but here we have something interesting, carved work in the walls, and one does wonder, is that parts of previous windows or previous porch or door that have been reused during restoration? But here we are. This is Smethcott, the Smith's cottage, church upon a hill in the Welsh borders of the Marches. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this video. I certainly enjoyed coming here. It's not a place I've been to in the past, although I've been in the area, and the view just takes your breath away. Well, thank you for watching, and I'll continue making videos like this, and videos that share the wonders of our heritage and the beauties of our land. This is England. This is the image of rural England that most people have. Cows in the field, the fields stretching off forever, and the sky. And you talk about the American sky in places like Arizona, but here again the sky goes on forever. What a glorious thing it is. What a lovely day. England in the summer. Well, thank you for watching, and may God bless you and keep you. Amen.